The following presentation is brought to you by Leadership Jacksonville.
Hello, I'm Kent Lindsay, and welcome to this episode of the Jacksonville Legacy Series. I'm standing in front of a Jacksonville landmark. Erected in 1923, the John Gorrie served as a junior high school for thousands of children in its 74-year history. The school officially closed in 1997, and for over a decade, the building was vacant and some say looked forlorn. Sitting on well over 3 acres, anyone taking on the job of giving this significant building a second chance would not only need to be prepared for the financial challenges, it would take a special person who isn't afraid of taking on tough tasks or dealing with hard issues. It would take a person who isn't afraid to stir the pot. It would take Dolores Barr Weaver. Dolores Barr Weaver not only lovingly and painstakingly rescued the John Gorrie, but her caring touch can be seen in almost every corner of our city. Since her arrival in Jacksonville in 1993 as co-owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, Dolores Barr Weaver has made it her mission to deal with difficult issues in Jacksonville. She has been a champion for disadvantaged children and a leader in public education reform. The little girl from Columbus, Georgia, would prove over and over again to be a compassionate friend to those in need in our city and beyond. Dolores Barr Weaver announced the Jaguars Foundation on September 14, 1994, before the first football game was ever played, and made its first grants in March of 1995. Over the next 17 years, the foundation granted over $15 million to programs serving disadvantaged youth in the 5-county area. Teen pregnancy prevention program Straight Talk Teens and Sex, the Real Truth, stands out because she was able to convince all local media to support the annual televised program beginning in 1995 through 2011. The Dolores Barr Weaver Fund of the Community Foundation will address such hot-button topics as rape in the military, removing illegal guns, criminals, and semi-automatic weapons from our streets, and requiring registration of all guns. The new policy center, which carries her name, is a strong voice for girls in Florida's juvenile justice system. Husband Wayne Weaver stated, "The thing I admire most about my wife is her passion for wanting to change the world. She believes down in the depths of her soul that she can make the world a better place." Join us now as we meet up with Dolores Barr Weaver and find out a little more about this remarkable woman who has always been willing to do the work that must be done for the good of others, even when it means stirring things up. Let's just start chatting.
Okay, start chatting.
We're sitting here in the John Gorrie. Now, this was a building that you're quoted as saying was a little forlorn when you found it. Can you tell us a little bit about renovating the John Gorrie?
Well, I often call it insanity, but
Yeah. Yours or?
yeah. Well, Wade and I live close by, and we walk a lot. So we had, walked in the neighborhood and kept seeing this old building, and I just said, somebody ought to do something about this building. And unbeknownst to me, it would be the two of us, and but it was just meant to be. And even though I do call it a project of insanity, now that I've survived that part, now it's fun to see the people live here, and we have our first baby here, so that's a good thing, and so it's exciting to be a part of it.
You put a lot of thought into it too. Isn't this your design, and you chose all of the finer touches and everything?
Yeah, well, I wanted to keep as much as I could that had belonged to the school. And there again, my husband said, "What do you mean you're going to put that on the wall and stuff?" But yeah, we kept chalkboards and radiators and doors and windows, and they're my art around the buildings. I am into historic things. I have a lot of antiques at my own home, and it just felt right. It just felt like I should be the one to do this, and it was a lot of fun, but a lot of work.
In talking about you, you are known as a little girl from Columbus, Georgia. Can you tell me a little bit about your childhood?
Well, I am from Columbus, Georgia. I had just one sister, and she was 7 years older than myself, so I was kind of like an only child for a while there. And of course, met Wayne there. He's grew up in Columbus, Georgia as well. And the more interesting thing about my living in Columbus, Georgia, and being from there is that I knew his mother first. So he says he had no chance because she loved me first. So, but yeah, you know, we both grew up in, average middle America. My dad worked very hard, and I think instilled in me especially a work ethic that I think I carry on yet today. My mother was a stay-at-home mom, which I was grateful that she could do that.
How did you and Wayne meet?
Well, through his mother, actually. She had a dress shop in Columbus, Georgia. It was called the Darling Shop. It was, a chain store, and she was the manager there. And I went to work for her when I was 15. And Wayne would come in, sprawling in, showing his big stuff. And so this one other young girl said, that Wayne Weaver, his mother doesn't think anybody's good enough for him. I can't tell you that I really thought to myself, but maybe I did. I'll just show her. So that's really how I met him, was through working with her there at that store. His mother helped him choose the wedding rings, though, I can tell you that. And he gave me the wedding ring at Christmas in 1954, and we were married in February of 1955. That part was short. But it's been 58 years, so we've worked through a lot of ups and downs and challenges, just like everyone else. We were, teenage bride, and he just turned 20. So, and then I worked actually for 7 years. Our son was not born until 7 years after we were married, and I worked, and oftentimes he says that I made more money than he did. And of course, to put that in perspective, we just aspired to make $10,000 a year. Think of that. This was 1955. And have a $35,000 house. Now, unbeknownst to us, it's the saying that you should not have a house more than 3 times your salary. We're right in there, right? So, strictly by accident, I'm sure. It's pretty remarkable, and I am really proud that as an 18 and a 20-year-old, we went about our lives. We never asked our parents for anything. They didn't have much to give, but we just didn't ask. We'll do it our way, Mm-hmm. So, yeah, but I'm proud of that.
Tell me a little bit more about your father. You were talking about his work ethic. What was the work ethic that he instilled in you?
Well, that you just had to work hard, and you were not going to be given anything, that you had to work for whatever, earn for whatever it is that you wanted, and be willing to do that and do the best job you could. He, during the Depression, he laid bricks, and I heard those stories many times where his gloves actually would have holes in them and his fingers would stick to the bricks when it was cold. And this is Columbus, Georgia, but it got cold enough that those bricks would actually stick to his hands, Speaking of my dad, this has always kept me kind of level as well. He always said, we have everything we want, we just have to be careful what we want. So I think that puts things in perspective. We certainly haven't forgotten our roots, and will never. And I think that's kind of the problem that a lot of people go through, and it causes problems for themselves and others when they really forget from whence they came. And then they're not the same kind of people they would be if they could remember where they came from and how it was.
What are you most proud of?
Well, everybody would expect me to say my children, and that's certainly true. Being able to have two children that are healthy and well and doing well is a blessing, there's no question. And I loved being a mother. I was a mother's mother, worrying every single minute and watching, because children are so very special. Of course, my grandchildren are special as well. And Wayne is special, there's no question. But I'd say outside of family, probably being able to bring the Jaguars to Jacksonville was a very proud moment for us, because it was something that everybody wanted, but they didn't think it'd be possible. And it was kind of like, is the glass half full or half empty? We chose to look at it as half full. And so we were really very proud to be able to be a part of that. And knowing it wasn't just us again, it was the entire community. We sold, 10,000 club seats in 10 days, and that was a prerequisite. So yeah, so we were really proud to be able to be a part of that, and to be a part of it for all those years.
What were your thoughts of Jacksonville when you first came here?
Well, we had been in Jacksonville a few times. We had property over at Amelia Island Plantation since in the mid-'70s or early '80s. And so we would come down for the tennis tournament that they had over at the plantation. And Wayne's brother, of course, lives in Jacksonville, so sometimes we would see them, but usually they would come over there rather than coming. So I really couldn't, hadn't made up any impression or had an impression of what Jacksonville was. But, of course, needless to say, and it has to be said, we came to Jacksonville on the coattails of an NFL team. So that opened many, many doors for us. And of course, before we got the team, and we came in March of '93, and people, of course, loved us because we were trying to bring a team here, and just made us feel, so welcome here. And we immediately found that it was home. And in fact, just a bit about that and the Jaguars was that it fell through, in October of '93. The whole thing fell through. And so the calls began to come, would you be interested in going so-and-so and so-and-so? And I said, I am not going anywhere with an NFL team if it's not Jacksonville. Because that's how close I felt in those short months to the people that were going to help us bring this team here. And thank goodness that happened. So I didn't have to make that real decision that I said I wouldn't do. But in the summer of '93, I was so sure we were going to get this team that I had said to our partners, when we get this team, not if, when we get this team, we will have a foundation, and it will support economically and socially disadvantaged youth. And so all that came to pass, and sure enough, September of '94, we announced the foundation. And we made our first grants in March of '95. Mm-hmm. And of course didn't have a player and didn't play a game until '95.
What was your impetus? It's like, I want to do this foundation.
Well, there again, just to give back, to give back to a community that I felt like would have brought us here. And most every team will do good work, but probably there's not too many full-fledged 501c3 foundations, as is the Jaguars Foundation. And I mean, I just seemed natural, just seemed that was something that we ought to do.
You are not shy from stirring the pot. You're not shy from tackling controversial subjects. Why do you do that?
I guess I do it because I can, because I think I can. And, and there's so many things out there that are not comfortable to talk about, or people don't want to talk about it, or it's too much trouble, or and I'm willing to do that.
You had a well-produced show that you did on teen pregnancy. Tell me about that program.
Yeah. Well, that was Straight Talk, Teens and Sex, The Real Truth. We started very small in 1995. Well, Straight Talk was really important because I know that children having children is not a good thing. It never is a good thing. Under any condition, it's just not good. So, and I liken that always to a snowball that comes rolling down a hill, gathering up snow, and that snowball is beautiful. But children having children, generation after generation, it's not a beautiful thing.
Well, Straight Talk was very candid, and it covered a lot of topics, and I think that in addition to the education of young people, you educated a lot of adults.
Well, and thank you for mentioning that, because I think so too, because as much as the kids, it was an awareness program for the adults, and because I think it's difficult, that's not always an easy subject to talk about, but I think it perhaps gave them, a little bit, a feeling of, okay, this needs to be done, and I need to do this. Through Straight Talk, and actually the grants that we made to agencies to have programs within their agency for Straight Talk, was giving factual, hopefully age-appropriate education to children, because they were not getting it at home. This was our way to try to touch a very important issue for that.
I noticed on your desk here at John Gorey that you have a interesting sticker on the front of your desk that says, "Feminism is this radical idea that women should be treated like human beings." Mm-hmm. Which I love that whole thing.
Well, I think the general consensus is, especially among men, and especially powerful men, is that it's a man's world.
Do you think that's ever going to change?
I sure hope so, because I have a daughter and I also have a granddaughter, and I know that hopefully they too will have daughters along the way, and I surely hope that that will be the case. Women have come so far. I hate to complain because, back when all those wonderful folks were working to even get a vote, and going through much more than I personally will ever go through. But just to think, in all those many years, the subject's still there.
When you came to Jacksonville 20 years ago, you were saying the same things. Mm-hmm. What sort of response did you get?
Well, actually, there again, I have to go back and say, it was the Jaguars. I'm sure there are a lot of people that don't like some of the things I say or do, or the stance I take, and I've been accused of being in the bully pulpit, and those kinds of things. But I absolutely know that I, coming as any woman here, I couldn't have done what I think I did by speaking out. And the thing I wanted to do, and still do want to do, I want people to say, Dolores Weaver can say that, I can too. But I will tell you, at the Women's Giving Alliance luncheon, everybody loved it when I talked about doing some work at our house. And of course I had contracted the work to be done. I had dealt with the workers the whole time through. And when the invoice came to be paid, it came to Mr. Wayne Weaver. Excuse me? So I promptly put it in an envelope and sent it back and said, I contracted the work, I saw it through to finish, I will pay your bill, but send it to me. I have had women meet up with me every place since then, so many, and said, I'm so glad, because it's happened to me before too, and I just never thought about it. I wrote a check and sent it. So, those are the little things that you hope will have made a difference.
You talk about the starfish.
Yes, I do. Yes.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah. Well, there's the story of the little boy picking up starfish on the beach, and a little man comes by and says, "Son, what are you doing?" you can't make a difference with all these starfish. There's too many. So the little boy picks up one and he goes to the sea, drops it in the sea and said, I made a difference to that one. So we like to think if there are 30 kids or 100 kids or 500 kids involved, you'll make a difference for everyone. But that's not realistic. You won't. But just make a difference for one. Wow. And if every one person would make a difference for one, what a different world we'd be.
One of the things that Wayne said about you, that he admires about you so much, is that you have this deep feeling in the bottom of your soul that you can change the world. And you've been trying to change the world.
Oh, God bless him. He puts a big burden on me with that.
It is a big burden, but you seem to have stepped up to the plate with a great deal of courage.
Yeah.
And a great deal of leadership. Yeah. How have you done that? What has driven you to do that?
Well, I guess just knowing that I can. And I'm a firm believer that to whom much is given, much is expected. And we've been given an awful lot of opportunities. We've worked hard, we've earned what we have, but we've been given opportunities by others and made the most of them. So it's just, we just want to give back and need to give back. And I wish everybody would give back what they can. So I would encourage people to do whatever it is they can do, whatever is their expertise or their caring, to do to make it the best community it can be, and not only for themselves but for generations to come. I think that's an obligation that we all have in our own way, not dictated by anyone how they do it, but do what they can.
How do you choose the causes or the efforts that you support?
Well, you know, sometimes it's not my choice. They select me. And once I get the knowledge, because I can't possibly know about every need out there or every special need, so sometimes the needs find me. And then with a lot of due diligence, you know, I determine if it is for me. People say it must be nice to write checks. Well, I guess it is nice to write checks, and you can feel good about yourself and you can do good work. But it's not that easy. So giving away money thoughtfully is hard work. It's really hard work. But it's
just not with a stroke of a pen for you. It's just...
Well, it can be, but for me it isn't. I mean, I don't care if it's $50 or $50,000. I want to know the bottom line. I want to know for sure that the outcomes will be measurable, which is a little bit optimistic because you can't always measure everything, but I like to think that it will be tried to do that, and it'll make a difference. It'll make a difference, even if it's to one child or even one adult, it'll make a difference.
Talk about the fund that you created in your name at the Community Foundation for Northeast Florida.
Yeah, well, that I did last year, toward the end of the year, and I just thought it was important that as part of my legacy, I would leave, you know, substantial amount of money that would be my fund, and so it is the Dolores Barr Weaver Fund, and it's separate from the Weaver Family Foundation Fund, and that has been moved to the Community Foundation as well. And it's really been a godsend because I find or hear something or somebody comes to me and I don't really know that much about it or don't really have the expertise to go and ask the right questions, then I just send it off over there and they do the work and anonymously ask questions, and then if it's something that I want to pursue, then we do. But it's been great to be involved with the Community Foundation.
Tell us about the Policy Center that you have just created, that has just been created in your name.
The Policy Center will be advocates for young girls and young women that find themselves in the juvenile justice system, many times as a victim a second time. And they're in there with no fault of their own. They become a victim all over again, many times in the process of being within that system. And then, you know, becoming an advocate for all girls and young women.
What have been some of the challenges that have had the most profound effect on you, that you've really learned something about your leadership style?
The biggest challenge of my life, though, I can easily say, was dealing with my mother's death. I lost my mother to cancer. I was just 20. She was 47. And of course, in 1957, they didn't know a lot about cancer. And in fact, it was kind of taboo to even have the illness. Today, thank goodness, people can talk about their illnesses. And, but in those days, like I say, you just didn't. And it was hard being a 20-year-old, losing her mother, knowing I still needed her, to be able to, not to be able to do anything. And there wasn't anything I could do. So I think for all those 30 years, I never quite coped with that because I felt I should have done something or could have. Knowing intellectually I couldn't,
right.
But deep down I so wanted to. So 30 years, in 1987, after her death, we did this Claudia Adams Bar program in its basic science at the Dana-Farber in Boston.
That's right.
And it is amazing. It did take a lot of burden off of my heart, and that finally I could do something. Mm-hmm. And that meant a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you've done so many things for young people in Jacksonville. What advice would you give to young people coming up?
Well, the main thing to young people is to get an education. You know, at this day and time, while Wayne was very successful with a high school education, more successful than many who have many, many degrees. We often say that we have doctorate degrees and life skills to just live, you know. But it's so important that young people get an education today, and that they get an education that they can make a living, not just to graduate from, you know, a university. I think it's good that we tell our young people to always be true to yourself, because if you're not true to yourself, you cannot be true to anyone. And that's not always easy to do either. But anything worth having is worth working for. So everything's not easy.
What you two have brought to this city has changed Jacksonville so much for the better. How would you like to be remembered?
Oh, that's a good question. And I have been asked it before, and I've never really been pleased with what I said, to be honest.
Well, here's your opportunity to say it again.
Well, you know, I think if people can just honestly say they believe I cared and that I did the best I could to help as many as I could and to make a difference, even in that one starfish, and I guess is the most I could ask for.
We hope you've enjoyed a glimpse into the life, leadership, and legacy of Dolores Barr Weaver. To see this program again or to see extended interviews, log on to www.leadershipjacks.org. Thank you for watching.